Go live or go home. Go live or go home. Well, welcome to our Tuesday weekly community live stream. I am Dean Tenney, coming to you from my studio here in fabulous Las Vegas. Meg, tell us where you're coming from and what exam you're taking. We're joined by our always very, very special guest, Brian Lee, managing member of Test Geek Exam Prep LLC. The best free supplement to your paid study materials is my YouTube channel. But if you're looking for a paid supplement, there is no better paid supplement than Test Geek Exam Prep LLC and Brian's videos, his PDFs. He's got lots of goodies. He is kind enough to give us a 20% discount code for our viewers and subscribers. It is Guru20. Take advantage of that. Check it out. He also has a free YouTube channel where he's got some I won't call them teasers. I just finished a 24 today, Brian, and I said, listen, if you're struggling with buy-ins and sellouts, I know this sounds silly, but Brian has a life-changing 24 little video on YouTube about buy-ins and sellouts. Check it out. So check out some of his free stuff on YouTube as well. Tonight, after we're done, in terms of housekeeping, if you want to stick around, you'll be redirected to a replay of last Tuesday's live stream overtime session. We do that not every Tuesday, but most Tuesdays. And you might just want to see if that speaks to you. If it does, you can register for that free at deantenneytutoring.setmore.com. And the next one will be next Tuesday. It's capped at 10, so 10 participants, and then it disappears from that schedule. If you miss the live stream, we broadcast to Facebook, we broadcast to YouTube, LinkedIn, and Twitter. I think the best platform to join us from is YouTube. But that being said, if you miss it, good news, it's available as a podcast afterwards on Spotify and on the YouTube channel. So you can check out the replay if you like while you're at the gym or you're driving or whatever you happen to be doing. At the end of each session, we do a drawing. Tonight's drawing will be for a 30-minute coaching call. That coaching call is recorded and it's shared with others afterwards. So you can share it, you can assign it, you can do with it what you will. If you win when we do the drawing, you have to claim that within 1 hour by sending an email to Dean the Series 7 Guru at gmail.com. And I don't want to have, the point is I don't have contingent liability. So, if you don't claim it within an hour, then, I don't owe you a 30-minute coaching call. If you do have a question for Ryan or myself, please let us know in terms of question format what exam it is that you have a question about, because God knows there's a lot of overlap, but, I just finished a 2-day 24 class and, the level of a question about, for example, Reg A plus is much different in the context of a 24 than it is in the context of, for example, a 7. So tell us what your exam is and then give us a capital Q. And that helps us pull that out from the chat. What's great about the community in terms of the community chat is, you might be chatting with others. You might having victorious test takers pop in. And it just helps me find out what in the chat is a question versus people just getting caught up and getting debrief from victorious test takers, whatever the case may be. Yeah, the other good paid supplement is a Kaplan Q-Bank. And if you want a Kaplan product or service, it doesn't have to be Q-Bank. It could be joining me for my SIE class next month or my Kaplan Series 7 class next month. That discount code is Guru10. So Brian Test Geek is Guru20. Kaplan and Notman, by the way. Notman, I also have a discount code there, and it's Guru10 as well. Best way to use the channel is to find your series playlist. It's like a buffet. Take what you like, leave what you don't. If you want to binge, that's the way to do it. So you take your SIE, you find the playlist, and there's all kinds of videos there for you. Now, if you're looking for a particular topic, go to the search bar. Last week, Brian, somebody asked us about a combination. And what they could have done is just gone to the search bar and put combination, and that would have come up for them. I linked it to the video, but the video would have come up that way as well. If you want to send Brian an email, he's a Test Geek Exam Prep. Oh, that's his courses, and this is his email. I think he also has on the board behind him, so if you want to send him something, he loves to hear from people. He'll probably tease me for telling him, yeah, call Brian. All right, well, let's get started. We usually start with a debrief from victorious test takers, and I do have lots of debrief, but unfortunately last week and this week I've been pretty busy. I just finished 24, so next week we will have a substantial opening session on debrief from victorious test takers. I wouldn't rely too much on debrief. It's nice to know what people are saying. However, every draw is a little different. So, the best way to pass is to learn the information, not be reliant on somebody else's kind of a draw. All right, well, here we go. So, yeah, I think I can. And I'll give Brian a shot at it, Billy. So an offer is different than a sale. A sale is an offer accepted. So I say to Brian, hey, I'd like to make an offer. Is that a sale? No. Does it have any testable distinction? It does not. It's kind of like if I attempt to rob the bank and I don't rob the bank, am I still going to jail for attempted robbery? The answer is yes, as it relates to the Uniform Securities Act. So a sale is an offer accepted. Fee schedules for BDs. The only test question, I'm not sure what exam, Billy, you're taking, but 63. For a 63, does he say that somewhere?
Yeah, down further. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So the only thing I would know about fee schedule, if it's a fee for a broker dealer, like wiring money or something, we have to give you a 30-day advance notice. And I would just be careful if the questions are about a fee for broker dealer transactions or services, or whether it's a fee for investment advice. Brian, the
question pertaining to offer and sale has been on the 63 for a very, very long time, as you know. It typically does not go into definitions and simply just examples of. The question simply would say, according to the Uniform Securities Act, which of the following are examples of an offer and or sale?
I love that. What do you think about jurisdiction, Brian, as it relates to that?
That's a little bit more, right? Where the offer is directed, where it's accepted.
Yeah, okay.
Right? So that's a little bit different concept.
Okay.
But the offer and sale specific is examples.
All right.
Securities included in a contract. Assessable stock. Who the hell even knows what assessable stock is? Is there any assessable stock actually in existence?
I think there is, but it's in small privately held businesses.
That's right.
And it's where you can get a capital call where you were required to fund the entity. All right, so let's see. Then Billy says blanket authorization. Again, without context, I would just say that in general, blanket authorizations are not allowed. So what I mean by that is if I'm asking for authorization to do something, it has to be for the specific circumstance that I'm asking for it, and it can't be a blanket. I don't think that shows up on 63. I just taught a 24, and trading along would be an example of that in a 24 scenario. But in terms of 63, Billy, I can't think of any questions about blanket authorization. And you, Brian?
No, not for 63. None whatsoever.
Victorious test taker in the house. Thanks for coming back. Circling back, if you have some questions, feel free to ask our victorious test taker. Hello, good evening. I think you got the hat trick, right? I think she was 3-0 undefeated on these exams. So thanks for joining us. New York. I love New York. I hope you guys are staying safe there in New York. I think New York is like I can't feel too sorry, Brian, for people in New York because we're in Las Vegas and it's 116, 17. So
they're getting wildfire smoke.
Yeah, and you're going to Seattle. So good news. She's in Seattle and Brian's on his way back.
I'm on my way back tonight.
Taking the 7. All right. Semper Fi. Ashton, I was in the Marine Corps as well. Semper Fi. Semper Fidelis is always faithful. I had a younger Marine who told me Semper Gumby. I said, what the heck is Semper Gumby? I got to write the Commandant. And he said, Dean, that means Marines are always flexible. I'm like, I don't know about that. I mean, we adapt and overcome, but I'm not so sure that we're, flexible. What is the advisory brochure rule? I'm also from Minnesota, take the 63. Form ADV Part 2 serves as the brochure. And I'm not sure. I'd say there's a lot of questions on the 63, particularly about the brochure. Your comments, Brian, on?
Yeah, there might be one there.
Yeah, right. 63 is really kind of mainly regulatory questions and mainly about a BD and agents of a broker.
Exactly.
It doesn't get into as much about investment advisors and investment advisor reps and Form ADV as does a 65 or 66. You are welcome. From Columbus, Ohio. Woohoo! Buckeye State. Buckeye. All right. Pass the SIE. All right. Taking the Series 7 August 1st. Well, Pass Perfect, the first thing I would tell you is that Pass Perfect is really not one of my favorite test prep vendors. So I guess good news. The 65 on Pass Perfect is better than you probably think because the real test is going to be a little more straightforward. What I highly recommend is either go pay Brian directly for his supplement where he, puts it in plain English, but also on the channel, we have some practice exams. One of those being Brian's Test Geek exam. If you want to get a true kind of correlation, what I would suggest is go to the channel, queue up. There's 2 Test Geek finals. They're the same final. One where I do it with a student, and you can listen to the student try and answer Brian's question, and I go ding, 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 or I go, and I tell them I'm wrong. Or you can just watch me do it directly. But if you hit pause and play, the good news is that will give you a pretty good indication of where you're at. I think a much better indication than Past Perfect. I think Past Perfect, good news, if you're doing well in Past Perfect, you're certainly going to pass the test. But I do think that does put some people at risk, particularly like the complexity of their option questions, for example, the complexity of their margin questions. My God, I had a lady pay me for tutoring just to help her do the Past Perfect margin questions. Ridiculous. Your thoughts, Brian, on Past Perfect and averaging 65?
Absolutely. It's a tough score. It sounds tough. It feels bad, but boy, they score a tough exam. It just doesn't correlate well. Generally, people will score minimum 10 points above that.
Yeah. So I think you're in better shape than you think. Now, I would tell you though, if there's some people that just, they get stuck in the Past Perfect mud and never get out of there. So just make sure you keep working on it. So don't, be resilient. If you're a past, I joke all the time, Brian. I think about starting a support group for Past Perfect people, just because,
Yeah, take supplements. My supplement, Kaplan supplement.
Yeah, supplements.
Get a confirmation.
Brian and I do not believe in monogamy when it comes to your study materials for Series 7 or any of the exams. You can use free supplements. I offer you a free YouTube channel. Ken Finnan has his Capital Advantage free videos. Past Perfect, you got your videos that came with that. You got paid supplements. I think the best paid supplement is Brian and Kaplan QBank. I think Brian with a Kaplan QBank, I think, is a great investment. I know a lot of people use Achievable as a paid supplement. I just think a better value is Brian with a QBank, because the Achievable QBank doesn't have as strong a correlation to the actual exam as Brian's practice exams. And then there is no better QBank than the Kaplan QBank. With my Guru 10 discount code, you can get that for $58.50. Now, I know not everybody has resources, but if you do have the resources, it is not a time to be frugal in terms of your study materials. Spend the money, make the investment in yourself. There you go. 66 exam, all tips. All right. So if you're taking the 66 as victorious test takers, I know there is some. Send Lakshmi, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Send her some tips. Nico, I will be seeing you tomorrow at 1:15. I'm going to give you a coaching call. Give thought to what you want to talk about. It's not a substitute for to keep working, Nico. But you'll get that invite for our session tomorrow. All right, Ryan. Kudos on your testing victory. You got the P. There you go. Well, just keep working. It's hard to keep motivation. One thing that I like about Tuesday is just come Tuesday, even if you just need an emotional lift or you need some, sympathy or empathy, join us on a Tuesday. Come get your Tuesday kind of charge to get going again. So I think this thing is really difficult, and more people in today's environment are doing this by themselves than in the past. In the past, the typical model would be you get a job at a broker dealer and then you have a cohort and you're testing together. And some people are still doing that. I mean, you're a crew member at Vanguard, for example, and you go in the office on two days a week or whatever. But a lot of people now are just doing this at home, and it's really tough. And a lot of those people are full-time study persons where it's hard to, carve out the time you need. So, try and carve out Tuesday to join us at 5 p.m. Just to get kind of topped off emotionally and intellectually if you need it. I always think, Nico, I don't think you should be stacking practice exams on top of each other. Okay. I think one in the morning, if you can. Mornings are better than afternoons. Get a score and then do remediation in the afternoon. And then I like to do some remediation study, lay more base the following day, followed by another practice exam. Now, as I recall, you told me you're testing, I think, the 20th. And so, you don't have much more time, but you don't learn. Practice exams aren't to learn. Practice exams are to get marks of where you're at so that you can then, turn to. Kaplan has a performance tracker that's helpful in that regard. So that's what you're trying to do by practice exam. So I had a guy, I don't know if it was last week here, Brian, maybe you know or remember, or social media somewhere, but the guy told me he was doing 3 practice exams a day. And I go, that's ridiculous.
Wow.
It's just a waste of time because the third one, you're not getting a real mark. You're tired. I just finished today at 24, Nico. And I told him, don't do a 24 practice test night because you're tired. You want to do that tomorrow to get a mark of where you're at after our 2 days together. And then from there, decide what needs remediation. I know Brian and I are pretty much on the same page. Brian and I do disagree to a little bit, well, maybe a lot, about how many practice questions you should be doing. I think Brian thinks that practice exams, if I'm incorrect, let me know, Brian, but he thinks the practice exams are sufficient to get the mark and do your remediation rather than trying to exhaust the Q bank. I, on the other hand, think you should try and exhaust the Q bank. But did I phrase that right, Brian? Am I paraphrasing you?
Close. I want to use the Q bank. I just don't want to exhaust it. It's just too superfluous.
Yeah, wasted time, I guess. Sunken costs. SIE, boy, we've had some good testing victories, Lloyd, on the SIE. I am very, very proud of my SIE playlist. I have 2 playlists on the YouTube channel for the SIE. One is just practice exams and practice questions. The other are actually lectures, and I think it's a supplement, but I think I don't want you to risk your career, but I think somebody could pass by just using the channel for the SIE. So check it out. Around 2 a day for like a week. Okay, well, maybe. I mean, maybe 1 in the morning with mediation, 1 in the afternoon, but I prefer 1 a day max because, you're trying to get a mark. And I don't think the mark on a second exam is as good as your first mark because, again, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get the mark and know where you're at. We're not trying to, get you there. Now, I think you should be in the 70 range. So I had somebody today told me their practice test scores was 72. They're testing tomorrow, and I think they'll be okay. The higher, the better, though. Ideally, like you want to be in the mid 70s or something like that.
It just doesn't seem like there's enough emphasis on the remediation of practice finals.
Yeah, I think people get in. I think people do get into the idea they got to do. And partly, I think, Brian, because there's a lot of old school people. Oh, all you got to do is do the practice exams and keep doing the practice exams over and over and over again. Do 10 of them.
Right.
And in the past, maybe that worked for them, but I just don't really think that works as a study plan. And even I'm guilty of telling people to do lots of practice questions, but we're not. Again, the point is you got to do other things. Remediation means, it's a good word. It means you continue to lay base. The way I say it is you want to overlearn everything and you want to bring everything up to par, ideally above par. But if all you're doing is practice tests, you're not going to find out what areas you're below par on that need to be, again, remediated so that you can get that score. So,
2 words, Dean: performance tracker.
Yeah, the performance tracker on Kaplan
is sweet.
Yeah, because it actually will point you in the direction of where you're weak and you need to spend time. So I'm a big fan. I think I told you, Brian, last week. I did check with one of the senior people at Kaplan because everybody always says Knopman's uses the Kaplan Q bank, so don't buy the Kaplan Q bank. But I was tutoring a Knopman person, and we were using what was the Kaplan Q bank, but it didn't have the customized final button. So she wasn't able to do a custom final. And then she also didn't get the performance tracker. So I don't think they licensed the Q bank in its fully functional mode. Now, I know that last week somebody told me they were Knopman and they did have a fully functional Kaplan Q bank, but the ones I've seen with Knopman students are not. Now, good news, she's blessed financially. And so she went ahead and spent the $5,850 to get the full functional Kaplan Q bank that has 2 missing buttons she had. She couldn't do simulated finals. And your point, Brian, it didn't have the performance tracker. So that's huge. That's huge. I love Knopman, by the way. Knopman's a great firm, great people. I'm just saying that that Q bank that they have is not a fully functional Kaplan Q bank. And I think that is, Brian knows backstage. I think the most competitive part of Kaplan is the Q bank. Don't get me wrong. Kaplan's a wonderful place too, but the competitive thing that Kaplan has is a great Q bank. Hi, Dean and Brian. I am taking the SIE on Thursday. I'm averaging 75 plus. All looks good on both that. What's the best use? I think rinse and repeat, Duncan. I think there's no red flags here that I can see. I just had somebody named Nicole from last week, and I may have brought her up. She's one of my favorite students because she was just squared away in terms of a dedicated, disciplined, organized study effort. The last thing she did was buy a Brian Kaplan, a Brian practice exam. And she was asking me what she should do. And I said, whatever you want. You've earned the right with those kind of scores to do whatever you want. If you want to take a test the day before, do it. If you don't, you don't. I just wish there were more people than Duncan. I could say, like I'm saying to you, sounds like what you're doing is working. So I wouldn't change it. I mean, you just got to stick to the landing, right? Just stick to the landing. Do the FINRA exam. Yeah, SIE. If you haven't done that, Duncan, make sure you do the FINRA exam that's on their website. I think it's very good. It's not a good if you've done it like 10 times and I got a 90. And I said, wow, that's great. Go, yeah, but that was my 10th time. I go, well, then it loses its, predictive power. So, Duncan, there's two I would recommend. So what I did, I think I told you, Brian, I did a doppelganger of the FINRA exam. So what I did was take the FINRA exam, Duncan, and I used the same answer set that they have there, but different questions. The technical name for wrong answer is a distractor. And really good distractors are right answers to different questions. And that FINRA exam answer set, I think, is really, really great. And so I did a follow-up exam where I did their same answer sets, but with different questions. So that gives you an idea of what those distractors are, the right answers too. So check out both of those. Check out the FINRA practice exam and check out yours truly's practice exam. Well, Nico, there's 8 things you need to know about a spread. I will certainly talk to you about it tomorrow, but the 8 things you need to be able to do, I call it, Nico, don't hate the 8. I will link to a video on spreads at 2125. The first thing, Nico, you got to be able to do is identify a spread. A spread is long and short, the same type of contract. The second thing you've got to be able to do on a spread is determine whether it is a debit or a credit spread. Right. Brian and I both are believers in what's called the options matrix. I don't know. What do you call it? Matrix? What do you call it, Brian?
I call it the options aerobics diagram.
There you go. There you go.
Long story into that.
Yeah. Well, anyways, he's showing you that you're long a call, short a call, or long a put, short a put. And what they're spreading is the difference in the premiums. And so you have to identify it. Number 2, can you determine debit or credit? Number 3, do you want the contracts to exercise or expire? Number 4, do you want the contracts, the difference to widen or narrow? Now, good news, when you get debit, you can rock and roll. Debit, exercise, widen goes together all the time. Credit, expire, narrow goes together all the time. The 5th thing you got to be able to do is max gain, and 6th thing is max loss. Max gain and max loss equals the difference in the strike. So, Nico, I would think the easiest way to proceed is to know that in a debit position, when you buy an option position, the worst case is you're going to lose your premium. And in a credit or a short position, the best news is you keep the money. So what I would suggest is once we get debit, we know the loss in the spread. If we get credit, we know the gain. The balance is going to be the opposite. So if it's a 10-point spread and it's a 4-point debit, the gain is 6. That's easier than memorizing the difference in the strikes less than that debit. Anyways, I will link to a video where I do go through all of this. Break even. We have 2 memory aids devices, Nico, for break even. They are CAL and push. CAL stands for call, add to the lower. So if it's a call spread, we're going to add the net premium to the lower strike. If it's a push, that stands for put, subtract from the higher. We're going to subtract the net premium from the higher strike. That's our break even in a spread. Test taking trick. You can eliminate any option offered to you as a right answer for break even that is in somewhere between the strikes. Yeah, Brian, I think, says, and Brian, you messed me up by telling me this because I did one that I messed up. Brian, I'll tell you what, Nico, right after this, I'll post a person who had a question about a spread. But Brian thinks that most of the time it's 10. And for some reason, he had that on the radar, and it was 5, and I put 10 there. It wasn't 10, it was 5. So anyways, but I'll post that immediately, Nico, after we're done this. I'll link to the video on the lecture, and then I'll link to a practice question. And then the last thing you got to do is bullish or bearish. And the way we determine bullish or bearish is the larger premium dominates the position. The trick, you can also use bulls because you're long the lower strike. So, there's 3 things to be aware of if you're missing the premiums. Longer term option contracts always have greater premiums. Lower strike call contracts always have greater premiums. And higher strike put contracts always have greater premiums. So those are the details. I call it don't hate the 8. Those are the 8 test questions that you may encounter on a spread on your exam. Yeah, I think our Brian's also did a class last Thursday. I thought it was very much a success on definitions and registrations of persons for 63, 65, and 66. And Brian was kind enough again to give us permission to put his content on the YouTube channel. So if you check out the 63, 65, 66 playlist, you'll find at the front of the playlist the most recent content, which is Brian's practice exam. I haven't seen Erica. Erica passed Brian, and she said that last push she made on Thursday night before testing Friday, she thinks made a difference in her passing. So
Nice.
check out Brian's, all his videos, got free ones on YouTube. Behind his paywall, he's got an entire 66 video course. And then, like I say, he's got his 66 practice exam is on our channel. I have a lot of 66 content as well. Make sure you get some help on that. Particularly on 66, I think where Brian and I are both different than test prep vendors, we have no agenda other than helping you pass your exam. So what I mean by that is our content, Brian's even a little more, he likes to say he turns potatoes into premium vodka. I don't do as much I don't distill the content as much as Brian. So I still am a little more freeform, and I might, like a test prep vendor, get into something that's not really testable. However, for the most part, I think both Brian and I in our content stay on the broad avenues and highways of things you would expect to be tested on. So every once in a while, I'll get somebody on the channel send me a nasty kind of comment. The vast majority of people are very nice, but my test prep vendor has this in their content. I don't see it anywhere in your YouTube channel. And I go, well, that's a hint that, I don't think it's that important. Well, we have all kinds of practice tests, Carla, on the channel. We have an entire playlist of Series 7 practice tests. We have Kaplan, we have Test Geek, we have Mometrics, I have all kinds of practice tests there. So if you need some more practice tests and questions, check out the playlist. There's a whole playlist. It's got like 10 practice exams, and it's got, thousands of practice questions. I think my Series 7 playlist is as deep in practice questions as perhaps some test prep vendors. Ashton, I'm sympathetic. Here in Vegas, I think we're at 117. So Yuma is another Marine. Is that a Marine in Desert Camo? We got a couple Marines on here tonight, maybe, huh? Oh, there you go. You're along for the ride. Yeah, I think it's hot everywhere. I don't know anybody who's enjoying some nice weather right now. Oh, there you go. I think YouTube is a better place to join us, Ashton. So, we're on those other venues, but my favorite platform is YouTube. Yeah, I've got all kinds of videos on municipal bonds. I have 3. So if you go to the search bar, put in munis, I have an underwriting muni video. I have a lecture on munis, and then I have the explication of the test. You can expect on the test 20 muni questions at least. So munis options. Tonight I'm releasing a coaching call, and we did 20 questions on options, muni, and mutual funds because those are the big things. So, make sure you pay attention to that weighting. Well, I think, Nathan, for sure, there's a question that shows up about your firm as a member of the selling group. And the selling concession is a 0.5 point. And then they say your firm sells 50,000 bonds. What is your firm's compensation? So I think there easily could be a 6 questions. I would know the components of the spread, the management fee, the total takedown, the additional takedown, selling group. I would know whether the syndicate is divided or undivided and what that means in liability. I would definitely know about the legal opinion.
Absolutely.
The legal opinion done by the bond counsel, qualified or unqualified. I definitely know about the notice of sale, which would indicate it's a competitive underwriting, and that's going to be placed. And I would definitely know the bond buyer. So, yeah, I think that's pretty testable. I don't know if I missed anything there, probably. Can you think of anything else in terms of underwriting munis? But it's definitely there, right?
Absolutely.
So,
especially the spread, the bond counsel, and the legal opinion, qualified, unqualified. That stuff is classic munis.
Yeah, it is. And then the other thing I just was thinking about, make sure you know a bond anticipation note. I would definitely know what a ban is. So, yeah, I think that's a target-rich environment. Munis are target-rich. options are target rich and mutual funds are target rich. I had a guy, Brian, in social media. Oh my goodness, I'm glad he reached out. He said, can I pass if I just blow off options and I ace margin? And he said, I'm thinking this weekend, I'm going to spend all my time on margin. And I said, man, I'm so glad you checked in because my friend, you have it opposite. You need to buckle down. You got to work on those options, my friend. And you can blow off the margin. I said, listen, if necessary, just guess B on all the margin questions. That wouldn't kill you. But you cannot. Yeah. I mean, it depends on your draw. So.
Right.
Yeah. Series 7 on Saturday. Can we walk through closing transactions? Well, there's only one closing transactions. Well, there's two: closing purchases and closing sales.
Keep going.
Let me get Brian his board space, and then I'll do color commentary as he wrong.
There you go.
Oh, sorry, Brian. I just took you out
Some
of
of
here.
the questions, a few, on options can get a bit complex because they have several transactions going on. And that's why Dean and I both are big proponents of the T-chart. That tracks the monies going out of an account or into an account whenever you buy or sell. And that includes stocks as well as options. Okay? Now, so we have two positions, a stock position and a put position, right? Now, 2 weeks later, let's say, right, the stock didn't do what they expected to do, so they want to close the position. That is the most ambiguous way of saying it. Oftentimes in the test, they'll say they close the put position for a premium of 2, let's say. So essentially what's happening is they're now selling that option contract back on the exchange. It's no different than any other transaction, stocks or bonds, right? If you buy a stock, 6 months later you want to sell it, you sell it on, that's a closing transaction. It's a trading term, not specifically an option term. So if you're closing out, you're simply just selling that option back on the exchange for whatever the premium is. So in this case, we bought the put for 2. And then now we're going to close that position, and whatever transaction you did initially to open, you do the opposite transaction to close. So you simply sell the put for a premium of 1. It's just trading the option. It is not exercising.
Yeah. The other thing I would tell you, Cynthia, is that sometimes on a bad draw, they might say something like you close it out for intrinsic value. And again, if you don't know what you did, it's hard to close it out. I like the casino analogy. So, I was at a casino Friday night, Cynthia, and I did an opening purchase. My opening purchase, I handed them $100, and now I'm a player. I paid my premium. Now, when it's time to go home, right, the offset is going to be doing a closing sale. Now, I happen to get lucky, Cynthia. Let's play Series 7. I did an opening purchase for $100. And when it was time to go home, I did a closing sale for $300. So whether I'm a gambler or an option player, it looks like Dean made $200, right? If I buy a call contract for a point or $100, I sell that call contract for $300. By the way, maybe next time I go into the casino, I do an opening purchase for $500. Uh-oh. And maybe I spend all my chips. I expire worthless out on the casino floor. By the way, that would be my worst case scenario, right? It was what I paid. So options, again, it would be either I'm going to trade the option contract or the contract got exercised. We had a guy, Brian, who was struggling with this concept. He had a short stock, short put, and he didn't realize, what happens to the put if it gets exercised. Cynthia, I am under no obligation on the test to tell you what happens to an option contract at expiration. What I mean by that is you should be able to figure out whether it expired worthless or whether, it was exercised. And that's what this guy was struggling with. So it is like learning a foreign language. I will link. I have a little video on opening and closing transactions. And I'll link it for you. Yeah. By the way, the casino is the opposite, right? My opening purchase is the casino's opening sale, right? We have opposite expectations about what's going to happen when I hand them the $100, right? Their expectation is that, I'm going to expire worthless, right? If I came to the cage and I closed it for $50, uh, my friend said, "Are you not going to do the closing transaction?" I go, "No, I'm going to keep the chips." He goes, "Why would you keep the chips?" I said, "I'm going to give them to my mom." My mom, she was so excited. She goes, "Where'd you get these chips?" I said, "Your son is a winner. Why don't you take these 3 chips and you can go cash them in and mom and buy yourself dinner or buy your friends some bingo cards, whatever you want to do." All right, let's get back to work here and let me see what our next one is.
Put yourself back on, Dean.
Oh, I'm not on?
No,
Oh, I'm sorry. Brian, I always make Brian the star, and then I forget as a director to bring back the camera. So, our insurance purchase tested on the 65. I think 1 or 2. I think it needs analysis. I would say, Spencer, if you tell me you missed the mark on 65 because of insurance, I'm going to say I don't believe you. What do you think, Brian?
Yeah, exactly right, Dean. There are a couple of variable annuities, maybe a fixed annuity, maybe life insurance. So you're looking at 3-ish.
Yeah. I call certain questions like material to your success and other things not material, right? So, I told you I just finished a 2-day 24 and, I was moving those slides fast and furious through some certain areas. I go, listen, if Dean is pushing slides quickly, it means I don't think it's a big deal. But if I stop on a slide and I spend like 30 minutes on it, well, then that's important. So it's harder for you as a test taker to know that. That's why it's a good question, Spencer, because God, I wouldn't want you to go down some insurance rabbit hole when you could actually be spending that time in other more target rich areas of the 65, like economics, like business information, mutual funds, closed versus opened. So there's other areas. Well, Carlo, thank you so much. I'm not everybody's cup of tea, Carla, but I always joke, some people love me, some people hate me. I don't think I have anybody who's kind of lukewarm about, myself. I told you I like Knopman. Knopman's a fine firm. Brian Marks is a smart guy. All the people, Marcia used to work with Brian and I, and Gaz did. They're a fine firm. Can't go wrong. People were saying that they meet their customers' expectations. This was a conversation I was having with someone, and I said, and they were thinking that they were trying to say it's an advantage that Knopman draws a higher end student because of their price point. In other words, they're not the low cost provider. And I took up the defense of Knopman by saying, no, that's even more impressive. If you're charging more money and you have higher maintenance students and they're still satisfied with you, then that's a good thing. That's not a bad thing. I don't think we should knock them for that. Yeah, check out Brian. Brian's not everybody's cup of tea either, but I think more people like Brian than me. So. Happy Tuesday, Sasha. Love the explicated exam videos, treated like a game. I love it. If you can gamify it, Sasha, if you can trick yourself into thinking, man, this stuff is wonderful. I love studying my 60 on my Series 7. It's much easier than, oh my God, I got to study my Series 7. A lot of firms pay yours truly a lot of money to tutor some of their senior management. And sometimes it's exhausting because I'll come in, Brian, and this guy goes, I hate you. I hate the Series 7. I don't know why I got to do this. And I'm like, Alan, please, you got to pretend you like this or it's going to be a long slog for both you and I. So if you can pretend you like it, it's a better way to go. It's a better way to go. And for some people, Sasha, some of us truly do love it. I love it. Brian loves it. I love what we do. So I guess we're lucky. We're fortunate that we actually like what we do.
I sometimes even tell people I like to take tests.
Yeah. That's why he's the test geek. Vegas is tough, Chris. It's real hot right now, but a quick overview, high probability. I think I just did that, Chris. I gave you overview. I will link to munis, but very testable. One thing, Chris, I would tell you to do is take a sheet of paper, fold it in half, and on one side, write all the terms associated with GOs, and on the other, all the terms associated with revenue bonds. Because a big part of your exam is distinguishing between GOs and revenue bonds. I just finished a coaching call with somebody. As I mentioned, we loaded some option questions, some muni questions, some mutual fund questions. And it came up a lot. A lot of the questions that started showing up were the distinction between GOs and revenues. So that would be one thing that I would recommend to you. But all the muni material, Chris, is high probability. I will take that back. There are some legacy muni questions, Chris, that drive me nuts that test prep vendors will not delete from their Q bank. So, for example, I have a video, tips, tricks, and memory aids. And every once in a while, Chris will say, well, Dean, in your tips, tricks, and memory aids, you don't have pro golfers don't miss. You don't have pretty girls date more. I said, the reason I don't have that is because nobody in years has seen order priority in a municipal syndicate. So there are a lot of questions that test prep vendors have. I don't know, Brian, have you had anybody who had to calculate a mill rate in a gazillion years?
It's interesting you say that. I had an email just a couple of days ago, I think it might have been Friday, asking me to calculate a mill rate. And I said, no, thank you. It's still in the textbook, but it is no longer. And then I tell the same story you do, that the textbooks still have these legacy questions from 10 years ago that no one has seen on the test since. So they're and they go good.
I respect Brian because I told you Brian is so sticky to it. Like if it's not on the test, he's not going to do it. Nope. I'm trying to get stronger, Brian. So Chris, what I sometimes say is it's not on the test, but I'll show it to you. And I'm trying to get more in the Brian mode. Like, why am I going to do that if it's not on the test? Because it just takes up brain space unnecessarily.
I just linked it to property taxes because a lot of people, if they don't own their own home, don't know what a mill rate is to begin with.
Well, yeah, property tax is definitely testable. Chris, you can check out, I have a podcast episode about legacy questions. So I got a rant where I went on about the old Series 7 exam versus the current Series 7 exam and why test prep vendors won't get rid of legacy questions. Like margin used to be a bigger deal than it is now. And I get it because they don't want, the page count never goes down. Even today, when I taught the 24, I said, listen, if I had permission to delete slides, this deck would be a lot smaller because there's all kinds of slides that are not testable, and I was trying to stay focused on the test. But you can check out that podcast episode. I'll link to it. And it's just a little discussion of these kind of things.
Should we tell them my history with PowerPoint slides, Dean?
Yeah. Brian hates PowerPoint slides. Anyways, I was going to say one more thing, Chris, before I end the rant a little bit. But I get it. So, for example, I started the channel about 3 years ago, and I have some practice exams that I think are still productive. They maybe are long in the tooth, but I still think they're okay. But I don't want to take it down because I don't want to say I've got one less video than I had yesterday, and I don't want to say I got one less practice test. So I kind of get it, right? Nobody wants to say we have less stuff than more stuff, even though that would probably be more helpful to test takers. So one of the things I've said about Brian's page supplements is, unlike Dean, I don't make any editorial decisions. I just put all kinds of stuff up and say, hey, it's abundance, man. Find some videos. Whereas Brian does a little more of, we said, distillation of that. And his videos are very focused on staying within what you can expect to see on the test. Test prep vendors, Dean, maybe not so much. I think Brian and I do a much better job on that than test prep vendors. I don't think they ever want to admit that they have something that may not be tested on. So, for what it's worth. Who do you think the most guilty party of legacy questions is, Brian?
Legacy question, I'll tell you.
I think past perfect. I'm going to say past perfect.
I wouldn't even consider them legacy questions. I don't know how you would label those past perfect.
Well, past perfect, for example, Chris, has make you calculate yield to maturity and do math you're never going to have to do on the test. Taking my second attempt on the 7 on Monday. That hurts, man. 71 hurts, misfortune. As someone who does not use, is it worth buying? I don't know. What's today? Tuesday? $58.50? Yeah, Jason, I think you've got $58.50 in your pocket, and it's not the difference in paying rent. Why not? What do you think, Brian?
Absolutely. We went to simulated exams again.
The other thing, Jason, I would add, now that we're spending your money so freely, is I would also buy Brian's PDF of his practice exam. That's like $20. You don't get anything other than the PDF with the answer key and rationale, but that's a great practice exam. I think it's $20 well invested as well. So that puts you at $78.50. And then, you want to be doing some simulated exams. So I don't know who you're using presently and what your practice test scores are. That would be helpful. But yeah, what do you think, Brian? Tuesday, too late to buy a Capital and Q Bank?
No. Simulated exam, remediation, evaluation, remediation. Perfect. It's about 6 days. Perfect.
Yeah, I think so.
Says 6 days right there.
Jason, you and I are in the same boat. Yeah, that hurts. That's but good news. I told you, I have a video that I will post. I don't know if you guys had a chance to watch it yet. But it's about, you failed. Is it over? Spoiler alert, it is not. And it's 5 steps in terms of how to respond to failing your exam. And I'll post that for you. I checked it out. It gives you some ideas about, what to do. With 6 days, I wouldn't be trying to reverse engineer too much what you did the first time, because it's time to take your second thing. The other thing I always tell people, and I'm totally sincere about this, Carla and Jason, there are so many successful people in our business who had the misfortune initially of struggling with their exams. And the reason is because that you have to pass 2 tests now, your retake and then a test of resiliency. And passing that test of resiliency, I think, is a more an indicator of being successful in our business than even passing the, your regulatory exams. So Kaplan's worth the purchase. There you go. Yeah, I think it's similar to the real thing. That's what Brian's trying to do.
The correlation is what is most important as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. We're not allowed to ask you what was question 35.
Exactly.
But we can say, well, gee, what do you think we could have done a better job preparing you for? And so I think in terms of when I tell people, I think Brian's exams are the closest in terms of that correlation. I have never been surprised. I've been surprised with a lot of other test prep vendors with the variance. Remember this from your exam, the standard deviation.
Right.
Where there's a great variance between what people were scoring on the exam. We don't give scores on the actual exam anymore unless you fail. But Brian's have been pretty spot on. I had a young lady, and I feel really bad. She left Kaplan, and she went with the test prep vendor that she thought, oh, Dean, I'm so glad I made this change. My practice scores went from 60 right to 80. And I said, well, I don't want to rain on your parade. I know you're enjoying yourself right now, but, that particular vendor, I'm kind of a little worried about what the correlation is. Could you do me a favor? I'm not going to ask you to come back to Kaplan, but will you do Brian's practice exam to get a score so that we can really know whether you all of a sudden miraculously went from 60 to 80? And on Brian's, unfortunately, she got a 67. I'm pretty honest with people. I said, had that been the real exam, you would have got a 67. And guess what she got on the actual exam? A 67. So that's pretty spot on correlation. Now, I had Brian, somebody take your exam on a Friday, got a 67. I said the same thing. I said, had that been the real test, you would have missed the mark. But good news, you're testing Monday. Do you think that we can find 5 points between now and Monday in terms of remediation? I love this guy. He didn't get wobbly. I said, Dean, I'm on it. And he passed. So we're not saying you won't pass. We're just saying that'll give you a good mark. Used STC for the 7, failed with a 70. Feel like the final exams were indicative of the actual test. I grabbed Kaplan to supplement, but any advice? I think you made the right choice, Logan. So I think there's always going to be a change in your score when you change vendors. So I wouldn't be, I wouldn't be down on yourself if you are scoring lower initially on Kaplan questions than STC, but those will come back up. The STC is a fine test prep vendor. However, their Q bank is not as deep as Kaplan's. And so in STC, you can start seeing repeat questions rather soon. And sometimes people can memorize questions and answers rather than actually knowing the content. Oh, I love it, Vicki. That's what we're hoping. That's what we're hoping the supplements do. This afternoon, victorious test taker in the house. Woo! All right. Woo, yay. Thanks for joining us after your testing victory. What's your next testing victory? A 63 or a 66? What comes next? Sometimes, Vicki, it's nice when you have no previous experience because you're a tabula rasa. You're a blank slate. You'll believe whatever Brian and I say. Whereas when we get people who have been in the industry, oh my goodness, they start playing tit for tat with us about, well, that's not how it really works. And, I had a guy the other day. I said, well, that's how it works in the security on the test. I don't know what to tell you. I always joke, Vicki, you now, Vicki, get to leave Series 7 fantasy land and enter the real world. Brian and I are stuck permanently in Series 7 fantasy land. We never get to leave. It's no wonder we're a little demented, right? We're always stuck in the testing fantasy land. There you go. That's what Ken and I are trying to do, get people past their exams. So Billy Ambrose's OnlyFans help too. I'm just kind of cracking up easy. I may be giving myself away, but I thought OnlyFans was for other things. Is that his name? Just I had a guy in class today, Brian, in on his Zoom, and he had Bud Foster. And I kept thinking, where have I heard that before? And then he told me it's a stage name, and it's the guy from Wall Street. the Cheen character. So 150 gig extension. Oh my goodness. On the entire content, Nico? Is that capital? Well, we'll talk tomorrow, 1:15, so we can get caught up and you can tell me what you're talking about there. 71 first attempt, definitely disrespectful. You will do well second time, much easier. I joke it. We want you to pass the first time, but if you go into the cave to slay the dragon, you get a 71. You got a pretty good look at the dragon. I mean, he got you, but it wasn't a drive-by. If it's a 60, that means like you never even saw the dragon. You got smoked before you even, you picked up your sword, right? So in theory, you should be able that second time to get it done. Now, I would tell you there are people who have serious test anxiety issues, and there are some people that take them 3 times. But the second time we have the expectation that you're going to pass, particularly with a 60 plus score, and that's why most firms do indeed send you back down there again if you have that kind of a score. Because we know that means you worked, you did the work for whatever reason, you just didn't get the P, as Brian says. 65 third time, 70, 69. Ugh. Does Brian have updates for new test content? Well, the new test content, Trisha, has not changed. I will link. Brian and I did a video, an entire podcast episode on new content on the 65, and I will link at 5104 in the replay so you can check out that podcast. I think both of us think that the material is more cosmetic changes than material kind of changes. I only seen one person report they saw anything on cryptocurrency, digital assets, and they reported that it was a distractor. It was a wrong answer. It wasn't the right answer to the question. So, Brian, have you heard anything about new content?
Cryptocurrencies? No, I've heard one or two. Very little difference. As our podcast mentions, we actually go through the content outline and describe any changes that are on that content outline. I maintain an addendum with all of my video courses. So if there is any updates, I just put it on the addendum. So you have them all there, one page, done. Very little changes for
Trisha. Check out. I think what I'll do, Trisha, instead of linking just to that podcast episode, I think, Trisha, what I'll link to is the entire 65 podcast. We did, how many episodes did we do on the 65? Yeah. So we have 6 podcast episodes available either on the YouTube channel and I'll link there, but also available on Spotify as well. So Brian and I did 6 episodes through the 65. We went through the entire content outline. So, if you need something to listen to at the gym or while you're driving, those podcast episodes are available. Yeah, well, Nico, like I say, the timeline is collapsing a little bit on you a little bit. So we would, you're at risk, and we want to do what we can do tomorrow, and we'll see where you're at when we get together. But you got to fight the good fight. I had somebody get as low as a 58 on a Kaplan practice final and pass. So we're not saying you're not going to pass. We're just saying you're at risk, and the key point is not to get wobbly. You got to stay dedicated. You got to stay disciplined. You got to stay organized. You got to keep working. You got to finish strong. You got to get a night's sleep. You got to do all those little things that you can do to help your odds, improve your odds. I hope not. I'm joking, but not really.
I thought you were supposed to be neutral.
Yeah. So, AD Banker, O'Brien tells me they're a fine, wonderful family. I think, is that what you always tell me every time we take a shot at AD Banker? He says, Dean, they're nice people. That being said, I really want to strongly recommend whether it's a free supplement or a paid supplement if you're using AD Banker. I think they're a little thin in terms of content. So whether it's using my channel as a free supplement or Brian's paid supplement, I would supplement your AD Banker study materials. Brian, your thoughts?
I think they're a lot thin.
A lot thin. Okay.
The family are wonderful people, but the content, just not a big fan of it.
Yeah, I'm with you. Passberg finals. Yeah, Fidelity is, I was telling a very senior person at Kaplan, the past perfect sales teams deserves a bonus because they obviously have convinced firms like Fidelity that there's something beyond passing the test. There's something to be said for tormenting employees that are trying to pass the test. My guess is that they are telling people that not only will you be able to pass your exam, but you'll also get some product knowledge that you can come out of the gate and use. But, Brian and I don't think we believe in that. I believe in product knowledge comes from sales efforts, and that our only goal is to pass the test first, and then product knowledge can come later. So I think that might be part of their sales pitch that gives, works. I mean, they got a lot of business. There you go. I like it, Matt. Yeah, Brian, I think Brian has the best practice test. I keep trying to get him to write an entire Q bank, but he doesn't speak to him. But he's got practice tests and they're excellent. The quadrants, I call it the matrix, and he calls it the aerobics. We're big believers in that matrix. Debit exercise widen goes together all the time. That's a great memory ace. If it's a debit spread, I want the contracts to exercise, and I want the difference in the premiums to get larger. Sovereign debt and geopolitical is listed in the new. Well, sovereign debt has always been a test issue. This is like Argentina defaults on you, or Turkey defaults on you. What are you going to do? It's not like you can send in the Marine Corps to, collect the port duties, which we used to do at the turn of the century. So, and geopolitical risk is closely aligned with that. Geopolitical risk is the risk again of geography politically. For example, today, I guess the Russians said they're not going to extend Ukraine's ability to export grain out of their Black Sea ports. So you were speculating in the wheat futures. Today would be a big day for you. So, by the way, on the entire 65 test specification, I've gone through and explicated that for you, so you can look at that. There you go. One of Brian's favorite. What do we call those? Brianisms? Sayings of Chairman Mao, sayings of Chairman Lee. Right. So,
who cares what you call it? It works.
Yeah. Yeah, I would suggest everybody should print the PDF of the test specifications or content outline. I would always have that next to me while I'm studying. Brian's class notes, he has a PDF where he actually prints it for you. And then he has his version of what I call explications, where he goes through it and talks about it and gives you a cheat sheet and gives you some explanations. Well, I call them legalese. It's certainly not in plain English for sure. Not in plain English for sure. Matt, Billy's asking you have any tips. He's taking it Thursday. I love process of elimination. Again, Billy, I have a whole video called Tips, Tricks, and Memory Aids. And process of elimination is a great test-taking skill, where you go through and you say, okay, I know it's not this one. I know it's not that one. So now I have a 50-50. Getting confused with exclusion from BDs, agents, IAs. Watch the Thursday class Brian did. So Brian, it's posted on the channel. Check that out. It's an hour. And I think that would be appropriate, don't you? I'll actually link it there too at 5739. I'll link it. Don't you think? I think that would be appropriate for that question, don't you?
That's exactly what it's for. Yeah.
So let's put that there for you. And that would be, I think, very helpful. It's about an hour. It's I think an hour well spent.
An hour, yeah.
Yeah. Brian's got his famous dry erase board. I think you did the entire class on that very same dry erase board, right?
Very same one. Yeah.
Do you think it's okay to start the book for Series 63? I'm taking my second exam for the 7th on August 4th. And I feel like I think so. I think if the question is, can you go out of sequence and knock out the 63 before you get that victory on your second attempt on the 7th, I would say yes. And I would like it because you get a testing victory, makes you feel good. What do you think, Brian?
For the 63, yes. If there was anything else like the 65, 66, probably not. Yeah. 63 is fine. Absolutely.
Yeah. And then the 63, I would tell you that's even more important. You do lots of practice questions.
Yeah.
Mainly suitability. Suitability comes from product knowledge. Not surprising. The 3 styles of questions are recognition, practical application, judgment. Almost every suitability question is a judgment question. Very rarely can you turn it into a math question like tax-free equivalent. So anytime you can, definitely want to do that. You're welcome. All right, it's getting close for our drawing time. Remember, the drawing is for a 30-minute coaching call. You need to let me know that you won, and then think of what your agenda is. For example, Nico and I are doing a coaching call tomorrow, 1:15. It would be helpful. It's not necessary. I told you, he'll log in, I'll log in, we can chat and figure out what he wants to talk about or what he wants to do. But it's a little more helpful if you can tell me, what it is that you want to do. I will post the last coaching call. I'll post that probably this evening. And what she wanted to do was some practice questions. And so that's what we did. So whatever you want to do. As I always joke, you are long the coaching call. So you have the choice, but not the obligation. Okay. So if I missed anybody, I apologize. We keep these to an hour. Overwhelmed? Well, let's get that one. We are here to help you with your psyche. Any suggestions? I would say take a break. If it's August 5th, give yourself permission to take a day off, will you? So whether it's Friday with your family or Saturday, Sunday, I would definitely take a day off, refresh, reset, and come back to it. Test kick PDFs. Okay. Training consultants. I would imagine, what do you need to do, Matt? Slow her up, or Tina? I think I told you the story, Brian. On my shorts, I put Tina is dead. And it was, the Tina stood for there is no an alternative to stocks. So I was using Tina is dead as the intro to my short about you have to buy stocks with dividends. But nobody watched the video. All they saw was my thumbnail that said Tina is dead. I started getting all these comments. She's dead. No. We're wishing you luck, Black Jesus. We're wishing you good luck. Good luck. All right, so let me get up our drawing tool.
There you go.
And let's see.
You like that one?
What's that? Let's see. Let me see what you got going. Muni. Oh, I like it. Yeah, let's do that one. Okay, so let me get the thing fired up. So if you want to participate in the chat, put Muni. You got to put it exactly as how you're going to see it come up. And I'm going to start collecting comments. And I'm going to go back and get rid of Brian and I for just a moment. Present. Share screen. Boom, boom, boom. Window. Boom. Oh, my goodness.
Oops.
What did I do there?
Hello.
I don't know what I did there. Hold on. Let's try that. Let's try that again.
Alice's rabbit hole.
Yeah, I went down the rabbit hole for sure. Let me try that again. So boom, boom, boom. You might have to re-enter it because I accidentally killed the drawing tool. So
oh no.
Yeah. So go ahead and
oh no.
Yeah, what can I tell you? So we're going to try that again. I'm going to put this over here. And I think I got it now. I got 18 entries coming in. And let me go back and get us. There's us. Let me get the shared screen again. And let me get hide current comment. Okay, I think, can you guys see that screen? Yes, no, maybe? Can you guys actually see?
Yes, we can.
All right, perfect. And then remember what you have to be able to do here. It's not Brian.
Let me put my email.
Yeah, that's not what we want. We want the Dean one. There we go. So if you are a winner, that's where you send your confirmation, your victory claim. And here we go.
And the winner is
Sasha. All right, Sasha. Woo! So Sasha, send me an email at deantheseries7guru@gmail.com to claim your coaching call. And then I will confirm, and then we'll set up a time at your convenience where we can get together and talk about whatever it is you'd like to talk about. Again, you can share that with someone else if you'd like, or you can assign it to someone else, whatever you want to do with it. It is yours to do with what you please. Remember, tonight I'll post the previous coaching call winner and the session we did, which were some practice questions. I'll also post, as soon as we're done, a debit spread explication request that somebody sent me. And I think I have one more thing. Oh, the live stream overtime, you'll be directed immediately following this to that video if you already haven't done so. All right. Well, remember, inch by inch, your exam is a cinch, yard by yard. Your exam is hard. And as Brian says,
Stay with what you know. You take the test. Don't let the test take you.
All right, everybody. See you next Tuesday. Bye-bye.
Adios.